All right, welcome to the Mantra Dad podcast. I am your host, Adam Marchakos, and I'm here today with my guest, Stream. Welcome, Stream. I'd love to get to know you a little bit more. We were just chatting here before we started, and you were telling me about this dances of universal peace that you put on here in
Uh,
Kauai.
yes, I've been leading those since 2005 here on Kauai. I first encountered them in the 70s. It's a very beautiful practice where people do simple movements and simple songs or chants honoring all the traditions of the planet, started by a man named Samuel Lewis, who we affectionately call Sufi Sam, and he was a spiritual seeker and teacher that lived in San Francisco, and he studied many things. And then at some point he and a friend who was a modern dancer, Ruth St. Denis, started doing these simple dances in their garage and at the time all the hippies were in Haight-Ashbury, and some of them decided to trade in drugs and rock and roll for spiritual dances.
Nice.
And now it's all over the world.
Kind of all goes together when you think about it. Just kind of entering different states of consciousness, purifying the mind, the heart, just stilling the mind, feeling embodied. Going deep inside the self. Could you enlighten me a little bit on your own personal spiritual quest?
Well,
That's
that
big.
that that that's been a big. I grew up Jewish, and I, that would be a long story to go into all the aspects of my Judaism. But in college, I studied world religions and became a student of world religions, and this dance of universal peace practice is perfect for someone who loves all religions and all traditions and honors all.
So, what is it about religions that make you feel connected, in your opinion?
Well, this particular path is the way we pray is basically by singing and dancing. So I mean, if you look at bhakti yoga or something, it's a joyous way to celebrate life and get together as a community and create peace in ourselves and in our world.
Perfect. Awesome. I would consider you an elder in this on this island for
Uh-huh.
sure. And
Yeah.
um,
Thank you.
what does that mean to you? And also I wanted to preface this with saying that you're a Mankind Project brother,
That's right.
and I've sat with you in various men's groups and always enjoy connecting in that space,
Hmm.
which is very near and dear to my own heart. I just went through the Mankind Project. I guess it was last year or 2 years ago at
Uh-huh.
this point, maybe
Right.
not 2020, but
Yeah.
2019. And I got to say, that was some of the most profound and deep transformational work in a weekend
Yeah.
that I
Well,
think I've ever
it
experienced.
was a powerful experience for me too. I did my initiation in 2011, and I was, I'm 71 now, and in 2011 I was 61, and and it was a rite of passage, and even at that age, So your question about becoming an elder, um, I think finally having a more true rite of passage, even at that age, helped move me towards eldership. Although I still think of myself as a kid
I,
in
I
many
love
ways.
I love the joy that you bring to life. I mean, I'm just getting to know you. I feel like, but I feel like you have a lot of inner joy. So I really appreciate that. Later on in age, and it makes me feel that there's some possibilities later on that
Oh,
this idea of.
infinite possibilities.
Yes, thank you. This idea of like retirement or whatever. That
Uh-huh.
actually is kind of that was sold to us, and it's actually not even quite real. So it's like really important to, go deep within the self
Right.
still
Right.
as you get older.
Yeah.
And
Well, for me, retirement's kind of a funny word because about 4 years ago I gave up my license and my insurance connections and my doctor connections as a physical therapist, which was and my malpractice insurance, which would be a form of retiring from being a physical therapist. However, this last week I did 12 hours of physical therapy care.
And that's okay. Awesome. I love that. Stepping into sovereignty,
Yeah.
And not necessarily needing I guess, the various accoutrements that comes with
Right.
with that.
And the bureaucracy and
I love it.
the somewhat, I guess in my judgment, somewhat limiting bureaucracy and views of.
I completely agree with you. Okay. I wanted to ask you a question about eldership, and I know you mentor young men in your life,
I
and
do.
I feel as though mentorship is so important for young men, especially people that don't have it. When you
Mhm.
don't have it, sometimes can wreak havoc in your life by not having that guidance.
Right.
So I want to commend you for doing that. And I wanted to talk about maybe in your experiences how mentorship has helped these young men and how it's shaped their lives.
Hmm. Well, I don't have the perspective of the young man. I could. The most immediate thing I can share right now is that in our MKPI group last night, where we were celebrating our the oldest man of an MKP on Kauai, who turned 80 yesterday, and the and and there were 6 men there, and so and I'm 71, and then there were 2 that were 65, and one that's going to be turned 63, and one man that just turned 24. So the man that was 24, rather than checking in, he actually asked questions. He said, "What, you know, I'd like to get some elder perspectives." So
Mm.
he asked some beautiful questions, and I
Mm.
think he gained a lot from.
Well, he really found himself in quite a council, huh? Yesterday, that's amazing. Wow. So, like, what is the kind of mentorship that you do?
It takes many forms. I mean, just recently I started tutoring and hanging out with a 10-year-old boy who's lives with his single mom, and his father's totally not in the picture. I I think the mother, recognized that there's a hunger for him to have some male connection.
Mhm.
So I guess I'm kind of a grandfather,
Sure. Yeah.
but also, and we're just having a good time. We went kayaking, but we also studied geography and a little bit of arithmetic and
Hmm.
doing some reading
So
together.
it's really about your presence in his life more
Yeah.
than anything, and that is the leadership and the guidance that maybe he needs.
Yeah. Well, you're a father, so
That's true. Mantra Dad.
so you know it.
Now, this is the Mantra Dad podcast, so we would be remiss if we didn't chat a little bit about mantras. Do you have any mantras that you personally use or have used in the
Well,
past?
yeah. From that tradition that I was telling you about, the dances of universal peace, we use what we call wazifas, which are paired names. They have what they call the 99 names of God,
Hmm.
and so one that I've used a lot is Ya Rauf, Ya Rahim, and Rahim and Rahman are 2 words that come in Arabic from the word for womb. So, and they're usually translated as mercy and compassion. And Ya Rauf is in the same group as those 2 other words, so they're in a grouping that has to do with forgiveness. So when I do the mantra, breathing in Ya Rauf and breathing out Ya Rahim, in English it would be, I forgive myself, I forgive everybody and everything else.
I love that. Would you mind doing a few chants?
Ya Rauf, Ya Rahim, Ya Rauf, Ya Rahim, Ya Rauf, Ya Rahim, Ya Rauf, Ya Rahim.
Thank Thank you.
No
Nice.
problem.
I love that.
Thanks for asking.
It's so many mantras, so many traditions,
Yeah.
so many
Yeah,
religions.
I
So
did study TM for so
a transcendental
yeah,
meditation.
and had one of those mantras for
Can you share that one? Or is that secret?
that's secret.
I figured, yeah. My brother went through TM training. I was like, come on, tell me the mantra. I was younger at this point. He goes,
It's
no,
so
I
when
can't tell you the
I
mantra.
have to add that and I say it's secret, I guess what I really mean it's sacred. It's a sacred transmission. So
Got
it's not like we're trying to keep secrets.
it.
We want
I
we'd
understand
love
that.
they'd love it if everybody did it.
Sure. Well, they just have to find out for yourself, huh?
Right.
Go to the training. That's
Right.
the mystique of it is quite endearing.
Yes.
Now, tell me a little bit about your life here on Kauai. What types of things are you into besides your mentorship
Right.
and the dancing? Anything else that really?
I'm very active.
I see you everywhere.
Yeah. I love music. I've been in many choirs, and my partner Miranda has a women's empowerment choir, which I'd love to be in, but because I'm not a woman, I'm not allowed.
You don't have the right
allowed in.
equipment for that.
Right. But I'm in the Sacred Earth Choir, and I was in the
Nice.
Kauai Voices and several other choirs and
Awesome.
other musical gathering groups, song circles, and
Beautiful.
so music's a big part of my life, and then playing outdoors is a big part of my life. I kayak and swim and hike and live near a waterfall and jump in the
Nice.
waterfall regularly and guide people into the backcountry
Very
and
fun.
and I also play tennis and basketball and volleyball and
Awesome.
badminton and pickleball.
Wow. I love pickleball. My dad's addicted to pickleball.
Right.
I got to get him here. I got to get him in one of these leagues.
Mhm.
Nice. Let's see. What else? Some things I wanted to chat with you about.
How about
oh.
fatherhood?
Yeah, that's a nice segue. So you have some kids of your own?
Well, it's an interesting question. I didn't have any sperm that they've told me when I was about 40 finally to impregnate a woman, but I had married a woman with two boys who were 4 and 6. So I raised them, and their father was totally out of the picture. Well, I shouldn't say totally, but negligible part of their lives. And so I became a father, a stepfather, and definitely a father. And through them, who they both got together with older women, and so through them I ended up with 6 grandchildren, and now 4 great grandsons.
Nice. Well, talk about eldership. You're more like a chief.
Right, and that's with no sperm, so that's pretty.
Wow. It's amazing what you can do with no sperm. Did you ever go deeper into that on why you didn't have any sperm? Or
They didn't know,
Yeah.
but
You're so mysterious.
But my guess is that I from what I've heard, probably I had a high fever when I had mumps when I was
Oh, wow.
11 or something.
Nice.
That's
Okay.
a good guess, but unknown.
No way of knowing. Wow. Okay. So you must have big family parties and getting together. Do they come here on the island?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now I've gotten together with a woman that has had 2 daughters who both have 2 daughters, and she also had 2 twin stepsons. So the family keeps expanding and expanding.
Excellent. And you're still there, just holding it down solidly. Awesome.
I do my best.
Nice. Do you play music as well?
Very minimally.
Got it.
I played clarinet in school band. I'm still at a junior high school level.
Mm-hmm. Well, what do you believe are some of the challenges that men are dealing with here in the 21st century here?
That's a really big question. Well, we talked about the MKP initiation. I'd say that's one of the biggest things that we don't have initiation in our society in general, and we don't have mentorship in our society, and a lot of men grow up fatherless to some extent. I mean, either fathers who are distant, just working a lot. That sometimes that's the best case scenario, and then the worst case scenario, of course, is abusive or in terrible pain themselves, and with whatever PTSD or mental health problems and drug addictions, and then of course then probably the most common thing is just divorce and separation. And
Do you think things are getting better or worse, in your opinion?
I don't have the statistics, but I think it's going both ways. I'd like to think it's getting better, but I mean, looking at this past year with the virus and the racial unrest that we had in the United States, I don't think it's good. It's not good.
How did the pandemic affect your life, if at all?
Well, personally, I actually had a great year because Kauai's been a safe bubble, and the biggest thing is we didn't travel much. Relating to fatherhood, I did travel. I went to San Diego twice because my 50-year-old son was going through a mental health, drug abuse, homeless roller coaster last year. And the great news is that after attempting to help him twice, a combination of me and his girlfriend and many other people praying for him and loving him, he just got through 5 weeks of rehab and now a month of sober living, and he seems to be back on track. So.
Excellent. That's always good to hear.
It is.
One less man on the streets.
Yeah.
Jeez. Wow. I mean, my wife and I lived in Eugene, Oregon for a little while, and just the amount of people living on the streets and just cluttered together in clumps is really disheartening.
Yeah.
And the problem is just kind of out of control. And I'm happy to hear that you are taking it upon yourself to, do your work.
It's a very interesting synchronicity that you mentioned Eugene, homeless, because my son's biological father ended up a street person in Eugene. So.
Probably running.
He's probably dead now.
Oh my goodness!
When at last I heard about him, he was living out of a Salvation Army clothing drop box or something like that.
What?
Yeah, but he was famous because he did ride a reclining bicycle around. So.
Wow.
Early reclining bicyclist.
Maybe you should focus on being famous for other reasons.
like being a good father.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good start. I'm actually going to lower this mic because it's kind of like blocking your face.
Okay. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so in your mind, what does it mean to be a good father?
Good father. Well, obviously present. I think traditionally, fathers focus on being good providers. There's certainly nothing wrong with that. It's really helpful to be able to supply a good home and food and good ability to have kids be doing healthy things and get good education. But I think it's mostly about being present and knowing yourself well. I think is something I finally learned that probably I hadn't done as well as I would in my dreams would have done before I had sons to raise. That if I would have really known myself better, I think I could have been even more present for them, and a healthy relationship between the masculine and the feminine. I think and definitely being able to respect the mother and the feminine and women, and
absolutely
is a great thing to teach both our male and our female
I'm
children.
all about that. I think it's so important these days to, number one, have a semblance of a connection to your own personal femininity, which then reverberates outward, knowing that the earth is feminine energy as well. And the women in your life who, especially mothers, can have a tough go at it, and it's really important for us to support, really when needed, and my wife always tells me, do things without being told. And that's somewhat challenging for me. So I have to always think a little bit about the other and not so much about myself.
So you mean she wants you to? She doesn't want to have to direct you.
Exactly.
That she expects you to notice what needs to be done.
Yeah, a few steps.
I hear that. At the same time, there's a part of me that goes, well, it would be okay for her to learn how to really communicate what she needs, and I think it can be a trap. It can be a trap for women to think they're mind readers. So
Yeah,
so
I think she's just kind of sick of telling me what to do
right,
all
yeah,
the time.
well, if you, yeah,
Which I totally get.
Yeah,
I'm working on that.
One or two times.
Yeah, that's about enough.
Should get through
That's
to you.
about enough. But it's like the bed needs to be made. I mean, come on, you should already have done that. Like, come on, Adam. Okay, so there was one other thing. About. Okay, so the relationship between like the elder and the mentee, I'll call them, and kind of the way our society that you mentioned, and I completely agree with you, the lack of initiations and men not exactly knowing when they become men, whether there's some sort of threshold that you kind of cross, and the presence of the elders is, I mean, honestly, the way in America at least we treat our elders, is kind of deplorable.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you probably agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe there's a new paradigm here that can be birthed, and I feel like you're a perfect example of this. Is actually going back into the tribe and raising up the young ones to eventually have the capacity to be elders themselves, instead of withering away in some old folks home, or their brains turned to mush, or I mean, aging is a thing, and what do you have to say about kind of that, in a way, almost a responsibility for the elders to come back?
I mean, there's no question in my mind that we all have responsibility, and that's a major thing, a major learning that might be one of the aspects of knowing that you're a man rather than a boy. Not that children don't have any responsibility, but I don't know that there's a particular age where you become a man versus a child or a boy. I think it's an ongoing process throughout life, and I think the key thing is respect. I mean, I believe very much that we're all teachers and we're all students, and if I'm a mentor to a boy, I don't feel like I'm the teacher and he or she is the student. I believe that I'm also the student and their teachers also, because I've met men. Like this last weekend, I went to a 1-year-old girl's birthday party, and she was definitely my teacher. She had great wisdom about presence that that most of the adults were not grokking.
Yes. Well, I'm excited to also announce that I have another baby on the way. My wife is pregnant, so I'm super stoked about that.
That's tremendous.
Yeah, I feel this time around it's a little bit different. At first, it's not that I was scared or apprehensive. It was just kind of like excited, I guess. And this time, I feel probably the same when it comes to excitement level. However, it's kind of like, personally, I felt like I was incapable of raising a boy, for instance. I don't know. That's completely fabrication, completely illusion. And I know that. But I feel like I would rather have a daughter. I don't know why.
Interesting.
I just feel like I'm more geared towards raising a daughter. I don't know why. However, Denise is very, I guess, sure that it's a boy. But we haven't had the test or whatever. And it's too early to tell at this point, because it's just about the size of maybe a strawberry at this point. And every time I do the podcast, I use a different fruit, because it's going to, pretty soon it's going to be a lime, and then it's going to be an orange. So it's growing very rapidly. And it's kind of interesting to think it has almost everything already. It's incredible. But the reason I'm bringing this up is, like, how would you, I guess, speak to a guy like me who says, "Hey, it's okay. You can do it. You can be a daddy to a boy,"
Well,
because I know how challenging it is.
I'm absolutely
Go ahead.
sure that you can.
Thank you.
I can. I. The key thing is that you have the desire in your heart to be a good father, and and I hope we get to the point where boy girl gender stuff becomes a moot point. I mean, we're humans, and there's so many, variations in all of us. I mean, there are very masculine females and very feminine males, and
True.
everything in
Yeah.
between, and I really don't think it makes any difference in humanness.
Yeah, the
I mean,
lines are pretty blurred at
I
this
mean,
point.
there are definitely, some some genetic differences in brains and body parts and things, but I think a lot of that has, it's probably one of the saddest things on our planet. Going back to that, respecting the feminine. I read a book this year by a man named Leonard Shlain, who wrote a book called The Alphabet versus the Goddess, which is probably one of the best world history books I've ever read. But he goes through in detail. I guess probably, I don't know if it's 5,000 or 10,000 years of patriarchal diminishing of not only the feminine, but of aspects of humanity like cooperation and listening to feelings, which we've we've almost attempted to eradicate that, which is one of the things that our Mankind Project is about, bringing men back, and also great teachers like Marshall Rosenberg and nonviolent communication, that where men and women are learning to listen to their feelings and communicate in a peaceful, compassionate way.
Yes, thank you for that. Seems like a book I'd like to read. Very interested to see how we're birthing this remembrance that the feminine is super powerful and it's super beautiful, and an integration within that doesn't make you any less masculine.
Oh, definitely not. I'd say much more masculine.
Much more masculine. I love that. That's great. That's great. I feel like
real masculine,
yeah.
not macho masculine.
Yes. What's the difference in your opinion? I think I know the answer, but I'd love to hear you say it.
Well, I think the real divine masculine, has respect for all of life and for the earth and for all beings. The the macho image is kind of a tough guy that's successful in business and sports, and and
Competitive
not necessarily a good listener or a good lover.
only to his coaches.
Right.
Yeah, awesome. I wanted to touch on some of the native practices that you've done and lead here on the island, if you're okay with talking about that.
I'm okay with that.
Okay, cool.
Although I have to say that I'm not a indigenous person to this island, so
Good disclaimer.
or North America or any of the other practices.
You're a human, and that's good enough.
Right.
So maybe you could talk about some of the practices you do.
Well, I mentioned the dances of universal peace. That's a big one for me, and I was also introduced in probably the 70s to the sweat lodge ritual of the North American indigenous people, which has been very important to me. And
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit more.
okay.
So you've been doing sweat lodges for over 40 years. Is that
Correct.
About right?
Mhm.
Wow. Wait, 50 years?
I guess I don't.
Wow.
Whatever you.
Jeez.
Yeah,
So you've probably done hundreds at this
I
point.
think so.
Maybe up to 1,000. Who
No,
knows?
I don't think so.
Okay, a few hundred sweat
Yeah, I
lodges,
think so.
anyways. Okay, cool. Do you guys do peyote at all, or no?
No,
None of that.
I'm totally.
Totally sober.
I'm not into substances at all. In fact, I even usually turn down the tobacco round in sweat
Got it.
lodges.
I love it.
But that's just me.
Straight source. I love it. Beautiful. So tell me about kind of what's happening in there.
Well, it depends on who the water pourer is, and there's, I mean, the first sweat lodges I went to were mostly all male, and they were done as considered warrior sweats, and the leaders tended to make them very hot, and we were very packed in, and there was that what I was told was the ritual was coming from the idea of indigenous people, men who were hunters, and they were going into the womb of the earth to experience a little bit of the pain that might inflict on an animal that they would kill to eat, and of course, in reverence for the animal and the animal's life, use every bit of the animal and pray for the hunt and pray for the food that they had received.
Amazing.
But then I went to many other sweats that, in fact, there were here on Kauai, there was a woman leader who came from the northeast part of the American continent, whose grandparent lineage came from Nova Scotia, and this was she called it a women's sweat. There were men in it as well as women, and there was a very different perspective. It did get hot, we did sweat, but it was not at all about how much heat you could take or suffering. It was about, a deep sharing in this womb with each other.
I talk about initiation for somebody who hasn't done one. I've literally only done one in my life at the. Oh, I won't say where I did it, but I was like, whoa, like, why haven't I been doing this more? Number one, and number two, how transformative and just how much kind of will and grit it takes to kind of to be in that situation, and also the brotherhood that was shared and the wisdom that is just getting chills just thinking about it, but just the grandfathers, the stones coming in, and how ancient it feels.
Yeah, it definitely is a ancient technology. I think one of the key things about it that doesn't have to be in a sweat lodge, but for men particularly, but for all humans, like to go into a sweat lodge traditionally is dark. For people who don't know that one of the things when you form the frame of the lodge, but then you cover it with blankets, and the goal is that there be no light in there. So I said we're entering the womb, but we're also entering darkness and going. And in our society, we're always saying we want to go towards the light and make more light, but sometimes we need to go into the darkness to learn about the deeper parts of ourselves.
I know all about that because I opened up a flotation tank center, sensory deprivation tank.
Yes, another form of that.
And the people who were ready for that really could go somewhere. The people who were maybe conditioned to, have a little light on at night or wear whatever, like how important it is to go into there. And that's actually where you find your light, in the complete darkness.
Yeah, and that's very womb-like. That's
completely
like being rebirthed.
Have you floated?
I have.
Oh, nice. Here on Kauai or other?
No. Yeah. Santa Cruz.
Oh, cool. Nice. What'd you think of that experience?
I loved it.
Yeah. I'd like to do it here. I'd like to open up one. I think it's a perfect scenario.
I vote for it.
Oh, yeah. It's coming. Float tanks are coming, baby. Wow. Awesome. Let's see. And how's your relationship with your current partner? How's that going?
It's amazing.
Nice.
Delightful. Wonderful. A miracle.
I wonder if I've met. I don't believe I've met her. You guys hang out a lot?
Yeah, yeah, we're together a lot. Yeah, her name's Miranda Rice.
Hmm.
She was Rhonda Rice, and she is very involved in the divine feminine and birthing and midwifery,
Oh,
and
nice.
she does hypno birthing, and she also
Wow.
has a, like I said, she leads a women's empowerment choir called the Voice Weavers, and
Mm.
she directed a pageant here on Kauai in 2010 called the Goddess Chant,
Wow.
and which formed the choir that I'm currently in, called the Sacred Earth Choir, evolved from that.
Tell me about the Sacred Earth Choir, and thank.
Well,
I just want to honor everything about your girl that you
yeah,
just
yeah,
mentioned.
woman.
Your woman. Sorry, your woman. Oh God, she probably would
Yeah.
not like that.
She probably wouldn't mind.
uh, so we have some friends in the Sacred Earth Choir, and
Uh-huh.
Denise has gone, and
Mhm.
I would love. I've seen the performances a few
Yeah.
times. Tell me a little bit about
Well,
what that's like for you to get in there and
well,
just.
I love group singing, and Daniel Nelson is the director, and he's an amazing man. He he's got a beautiful voice and a great ear, and an incredibly wonderful, sensitive heart, and he loves the earth deeply. So that's why, henceforth, the name of the choir.
Sure.
We people say, "What do you sing?" Well, we sing love songs to the earth,
Oh, love it.
mostly, and to peace.
Mm.
And anyway, and Daniel's just his the warm up that he does for choir. I tell people, if you want to do the most amazing 15-minute spiritual practice while you're on Kauai visiting, just come to Daniel's choir, and it is open to anyone.
It's tomorrow, Wednesdays,
Yep,
usually. Yeah.
6:30 we meet. Circle forms at 6:45 at the
Mm.
Golden Lotus Studio.
You may see me tomorrow.
Okay, we'd
That'd
love
be
to
fun.
have you. We've been
I
getting
love
more and more
singing
men
as well. Yeah, I think that's I think that's great. Important.
and beautiful goddesses.
Of course. There's no shortage of them on this island, that's for sure. There's surplus. If you're a single man who has some
No,
spiritual
it's not a dating site.
talking more about the island in general. There's a lot of women that here that are very empowered, I would say, and that's part of what this podcast is hoping to achieve is to have some sort of forum like men like you can educate and talk
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
us and say, okay, well, how do we become empowered if we're not or not feeling that way, and how would you say a man could become empowered if he's not empowered already?
Well,
And that's kind of a
I
challenging word.
yeah. Well, so I guess for me, it's what's empowering is kind of the opposite of what most people think of.
Of masculinity,
Well,
so to
what's
speak.
the opposite of what people think of power? It's
Sure.
the power for me is in the becoming more vulnerable, and I have little tears in my eyes right now, and I love tearing up, and I think one of the great main things that's missing in our society is grieving. I mean, we have so much to grieve, the things that are happened this last year, and the things that have happened since the 1619, when we first brought the first slaves in, and since the first pilgrims got here and got well taken care of by the Native Americans, and then started slaughtering them and taking over the land, and all the things we've done, empire building around the world. And I'm not just talking about the United States. I'm talking about all of our planet. I think so I'd say empowerment for me is dropping down out of any, taking deeper breaths and dropping out of any need to be in control or power.
Yeah,
Being
power over
being
or power under.
becoming softer and more vulnerable, and listening better,
Mm.
is is what's
Mm.
empowering to me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed listening to you today and all that you are and all that you've had to share.
Well, I'm grateful for the opportunity,
Mm.
and to be with you, and it's an honor.
It's totally an honor. Thank you so much.
I actually talked about last night at iGroup because we were honoring this man who turned 80, but we have as you know, we have a round in the archetype called the lover, which is based in feelings, and my feeling was honor, and I realized that in most lists of feelings they don't list honoring as a feeling.
That's a good point.
And that I realized that honoring was like a joy, but not a giddy kind of joy, but a sacred kind of joy.
That's a perfect way of defining it.
Yeah.
Yeah, honor. I'm going to have to think more about that. Go deeper into that. Yes. Yeah, I feel like there's a certain amount of bhakti and reverence that comes from, witnessing somebody in their truth and just as they are, not with unconditional. That's really beautiful. Thank you. So when are these dances going on?
We do them once a month, usually near the end of the month, Saturday or Sundays.
At your place or Golden
Well,
Lotus?
since the virus, we've been doing them outdoors. Try to be at least a little within the government's view, although I don't know if I should even say.
Go ahead, you can. You can say anything.
Okay, well, we do hold hands and
that's okay.
And sing together without masks on. So.
How dare you?
And it's been very safe and nobody's gotten sick. So.
Of course not.
But Kauai is, I have to
Very
admit it, has had a lot less virus than anywhere else. So
Nice.
I'm not saying that everybody should have done that.
Awesome. Well, we don't have to get too controversial about any of the outside forces governing the inside forces. And I would have you always adopted this kind of this unity consciousness, this oneness type of
Have I always
perspective? Or
I think on some level I always did. I think it was difficult as being a sensitive boy. I hid a lot when I was a kid because I did cry and it wasn't acceptable, and so I hid away, but I think my heart was always wanting people to be loving and understanding and peaceful, and I think when I first kind of came out of my hiding closet more was when I got to college, and it was 1968, and we were trying to stop the Vietnam War, and Martin Luther King and Bobby Kennedy had just been assassinated, and I went to Woodstock, and this was a whole new tribal family that was all about peace and love, and
nice. Wow, you're a living legend.
And I had a professor in college in a world history class that was quite an amazing man. He was a black man who had grown up in the West Indies. He became a Presbyterian minister, Christian, but he had voodoo background, and then he studied graduate work in Japan on a mountain where there was Buddhist training, and so when he taught his world religion class, a couple hundred young students sat up in the seats, and he was down in a pit with a bunch of blackboards, and he'd start at one end with a Sanskrit word and show how it turned into an Arabic or a Hebrew word turned into a Greek word, and he'd be sweating and he was just all about unity consciousness, how it was all one.
Oh, I love that. I know. No matter where you look, it's all one. It's all the same. Like from the gigantic solar system to the minute cell, it's like the exact picture of unity. And yeah, wherever you look, and it's like a matter of just kind of seeing things, just witnessing. I love that.
Opening to
what's there.
To the other, to what's different from us, and being tolerant and accepting of what's mysterious or frightening sometimes. 'Cause
Yeah.
that's different.
Yeah. Yeah, the unknown is quite mysterious and somewhat frightening, but also totally awesome.
Yeah.
And I guess last question, how did you come to the name Stream? Love the name.
My given name is Steve, so it does have the STE in it. And some friend called me that about, I don't know, 25, 30 years ago, and I didn't advertise it. And then some of the spiritual gatherings I go to, everybody has taken on different names, sometimes Sanskrit names, sometimes Arabic names, sometimes nature names, sometimes spirit animal names. And just a couple of years ago, I started growing into it. I like the feeling of flowing like a stream, and
Yeah, it's perfect for you. I love it. I was like, Stream, man. God, I wish I would have taken that one. That one's a good one.
It's available. It's not.
You don't have the monopoly on it. It's not copyrighted
There's
or
certainly
patented.
a lot of Johns and Toms.
Yeah, a lot of Steves too.
Yeah.
I love it though. It's very unique. I don't. You're the only Stream I've met.
A lot of people tell me they know another one. There's a Streams on Maui or something.
I'm gonna have him on the podcast too. Sounds like an interesting guy. Well, Stream, thank you so much.
Thank you,
Stream of
Adam.
consciousness today that came through. I'm so honored to be in your presence and all you've accomplished, all you've done, all you still do for yourself, your partner, your mentees, and your I group. I mean, the list goes on. Thank you for being a pillar of light and darkness here on the island, and all that you offer. You really give people a place to show up to themselves and work on themselves, go deep. And I'm so appreciative of you. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. It's an honor. Thank you so much.
Aloha.
Aloha. Boom. Thank you so much. What a pleasure. And if you like this content and you're open to subscribing, sharing, please do. And if you're open to wanting to be a guest on the podcast, I'd love to chat with you as well. Live from Kauai, the Mantra Dad podcast. Aloha.